So you know how I recently put out a video talking about 10 bookish things I don't buy as a reader? Well, I'm probably gonna have to amend that and make that 9 because I just pulled the trigger and bought my very first e-reader. I put a lot of thought into this. I did a follow-up video talking about my reasons why I was thinking about it, why I was still hesitant, and was really looking for some clarity in the feedback, which honestly was even more confusing. I decided to bite the bullet and just go for it. And so this is my initial thoughts. I've had the e-reader for less than a week as of filming this. Editing Rachel might take a little bit longer, so hang tight. And I wanted to share my initial thoughts and then come back with a more thorough review once I've spent at least a month, maybe 2 or 3 months with the device, and let you know, was it worth it for me? How's it going and all that? But I thought I'd start here with a quick update that yes, I bought an e-reader, tell you why I bought it, what I bought, and how it's going so far. If that sounds good, let's get started. So I talked about before, but I was really on the fence about getting an e-reader, and a couple things finally pushed me over the line. One is the fact that I just could not stop thinking about it. I kept researching it. I was on various Reddit forums and just kept reading more about it. I really wanted a clear-cut answer. I wanted this definitive answer or acknowledgement that it was the right choice to make, that I somehow needed the device in order to be fulfilled as a reader. I wanted someone to justify my purchase, essentially. And even when I did the video follow-up talking about that, people were very helpful. People shared pros and cons, and it really didn't clarify anything for me. I saw 2 major reasons that most people put in the comments about why I should get an e-reader. One was that it was going to help me with eye strain, fatigue, migraines, and I don't have those even when I'm reading on my phone, so it really wasn't something that I could use to justify the cost or the purchase. And the other thing people reference is that it helped them get back into reading, that it helped them to read more, and as I've discussed on my channel, if anything, I've gone through stages where I'm almost reading in surplus, and I'm really not necessarily looking or expecting this device to drastically increase my reading. Really, I'm looking for quality with my reading over quantity at this point. So I was a little bit stuck after that video. I really thought it would give me the push. However, a couple things happened since then. One is I woke up on a Saturday morning, my kid wanted to read, or at least they wanted to read next to me, and so rather than pulling out a physical book, I pulled up my phone and started reading on there, and it just didn't feel great. It didn't feel good to be having this reading moment with my kid, and as far as they were concerned, they didn't know what app I was on. It really looks the same when I'm looking at Reddit, whether I'm looking at a book, and so they were reading and they thought mom was on their phone, and I didn't really love that. And that was a little bit of a push there. Also, I am being mindful of how hard I am on my phone battery. I constantly have to charge it because I do a lot of reading on there. I do a lot of other things on there, often again looking for short bursts of entertainment, and so I would like to be focusing on a different device. I'd rather drain the device of an e-reader by reading rather than just wasting time on my phone, which, if I'm honest, I have gone down a bit of a slippery slope. I definitely feel like I'm consuming more on my phone again. I've gone through bad habits in the past where I felt like my phone usage was getting really heavy, and then I got a bit better, and then it kind of falls back into it again. And so those were some of my main reasons. Again, with a lot of travel coming up, as well as the summer, I was definitely interested in the benefits for travel and also being able to read in the months where it is sunny and actually spend a little bit of time outside, which arguably where I live, you don't get a lot of warm months for outdoor reading, but I'd really like to experience what that looks like. So I told myself this would be a really early birthday present for myself. My birthday's in July for context, but because I wanted to be able to use the device for my spring work travel as well as using it for the entirety of the summer, I decided to treat myself and get something early. So now let's talk about what I bought. So in terms of device, I pretty much knew I wanted to get a Kobo, largely because of the fact that it connects with the Canadian library system, Libby, which is not available if you get a Kindle, and then there is the added fact that as of late, I'm really trying to be more conscious of where I'm spending money. And Amazon is just not one of the places that I want to be investing my money and getting further into that ecosystem that I can help. So Kobo was an easy choice for me. I know there are other Android devices, but I really wasn't comfortable with how they are often very outdated, and I worried about being targeted for security threats. And so Kobo just seemed like the right choice for me. So I did go to a local reseller here in Canada that does have the Kobos in stock and decided to pick up one. They had a couple different options available, and I should be very clear, this video was not sponsored. I bought this with my own money. I had $7 on a gift card that I put towards this. And of course, to be frank, as anyone with a monetized YouTube channel, technically I can put this purchase towards offsetting some of my revenue as an expense, but truly it was my own credit card that was paying for this, and it wasn't something, again, that was just gifted to me. So I want to be really clear, because there are tons of gifted or review copies being put out of these devices, and I did not get one. I did not ask for one. I wanted to have a completely unbiased review here. So at the store, there were two different versions of the Kobo I was looking at. I'll keep it brief. There was the Cobra Libre Color, which was actually on sale due to the Mother's Day sale that was happening for $20 off, which honestly wasn't that big of a savings. But a lot of people love that device. A few reasons for that: it has a larger screen, 7 inches, and it also has buttons. But as someone who has come from reading on a phone, honestly, buttons weren't as appealing for me because I'm used to reading by tapping with my thumb on a device. And when I actually picked up both devices in my hand, I found that the Libre just felt too big. I was able to hold it with one hand. The purpose of the buttons, of course, is so you can hold it like that and press them, but it felt unwieldy. It didn't feel like I had control of the device without being able to wrap my hands around it. So I ended up going with this one here, the Kobo Clara, because of the fact that it's 6 inches and I can, as you can see, hold it in one hand. I now have the case on the back, but especially without the case, it's really easy to tap and to access. So again, I can just go tap, tap, tap here. I should follow up to say, let me know if you want me to do some close-ups in future videos to really get to see the screen in action. I know there are tons of videos that do that and do a really good job. My filming quality might not be as good, but definitely I can give you the close-ups in that follow-up review if you'd find that helpful. And as you might be able to see, I have this really great out, but this is the color version. Now, I talked to a lot of friends that have both the black and white e-readers and the color versions, and every single friend, regardless of whether or not they had bought color or not, told me to get the black and white. There is a Clara BW, which is black and white. I still went for the color, even though I primarily plan to read novels on this device. A few reasons for that. One being the fact that it felt more premium. Just getting to see the covers in color for me was very satisfying, even if it's not necessarily something I truly need. There also is this whimsical side of me where I imagine eventually passing this off to my own son, maybe getting a newer device myself. And I know as someone who's a younger reader who still reads books with color pictures in there, he's more likely to be interested in an e-reader that has the color option there. Even now, I kind of want to try getting some books in the library and seeing what he thinks of the device and kind of playing around with it, making reading fun and kind of bringing in a digital tool into his reading just to see what he thinks of it. So I definitely had lots of justifications, but if I'm honest, I just liked how it looked, and it's the fact that I didn't mind the way the screen looked. I know people have really strong opinions on what they'll describe as a screen door look of the color readers with that second overlay. For me, it is definitely muted colors. There is a little bit less contrast on the device, but I actually like that, which I'll get into more. So needless to say, this is the one I picked up. I brought it home, did the setup, and I've now had a chance to do some initial reading on it. So let me talk first about some of the pros and what I'm liking about this. All right, so first off, what do I like about reading on this so far? Again, only a couple days in. First off, I am enjoying the experience of e-ink. People really told me you just have to try it to see what it's like. And while I still stand by the fact that I don't find it bad to read on an LCD screen from my experience, there is something very enjoyable about the e-ink screen. It just does feel very easy on the eyes, and it does feel more like paper. And one of the things I really actually liked with the color device is the fact that because it almost has a grainier quality, which I know for people who are e-reader purists, that is a horrible thing to say about a device, but I like it because I often say, especially with some of the black and white e-readers, when I was looking at the screen capture of other people's videos when they were showing it, is the contrast is so bright even on zero light that it almost looked like reading on printer paper. And I'm not someone who likes to read my books that way. I really hate the experience of printing off something onto paper and having to read it as if it is like a school essay or something like that. And so this actually appealed to me a lot more. There is more of a grayish tone to the device, especially on low light or no light. And because of that, it feels much more organic if you're someone who's used to reading on yellowed paperbacks. And again, when the pages aren't necessarily brand new, often I'm reading older books. And so it's actually quite familiar to me to have something that looks aged. And I actually really like that about here. Again, there's a lot of enjoyment I'm getting from the color imagery itself, even if it is just the covers on sleep mode, or as I'm browsing, it is nice to really be able to see the pops of color and really be able to read the screen if some of the wording and art on the cover is colored itself. And I would like to experiment more with doing some graphic work on here. That's something I really didn't get a chance to do yet, but I'm looking to get something from Libby and being able to play around with it and see how that compares to reading on my tablet, just to see if it's something I really plan on doing. But again, it was only $20 more, so for me there was just no real downside to getting the color version. The other thing I've really been interested in is the battery life. So I feel like the initial setup really does a detriment to the battery life. The device was 60% when I turned it on, and I did a lot of playing around with it, setting it up, syncing it with multiple libraries and all of that. And through that process, definitely I did see some battery drain, but again, I had the Wi-Fi on. I was constantly syncing books between this device and my main Libby account, so I had to be constantly working that. And so there definitely was some drain. So I'm really interested again in a follow-up video to really be able to talk about what that looks like. But compared to my phone, which I'm plugging into an outlet at least once a day with my current use, this is so much better. And again, I'm not worried if it were to die or get low battery. It's less of a big deal because I'm not using this for emergency phone calls. I don't need to make sure that this is working. So it is nice to have a battery that I don't need to worry about the same way as my personal device, my personal phone. And really one of the benefits I'm seeing, which I think is most interesting, is the fact that I'm seeing what a difference it makes to not be always grabbing my phone. I am finding myself, again, picking up this rather than my phone. And because even if my purpose was to pick up my phone to read, if I'm honest, as much as I say I choose to be distracted or not, I definitely will go and check my email, check Instagram, check my video comments, and do all these other things. But if I am picking up this, it is much more an intentional choice. I like that I can, again, be modeling reading. I like that if I'm bringing this somewhere, it feels very intentional to sit down and read. I just came back from a doctor appointment, and again, I brought this device. My phone didn't even come out of my purse the entire visit, and I can't remember the last time I did that. With how much waiting you do at a doctor's office, the fact that I did not pick up my phone at all and only use this device from start to finish of all the waiting time really, honestly, is I think one of the best benefits of a device like this, which is something that people talk about, but I didn't really understand what they meant by that distraction-free environment. Because again, I can still pick up my phone, but at least so far in this shiny new toy stage, I'm finding myself really intensely focused on just reading on this and not finding my phone quite so enticing. I could see that changing, but again, on first initial reaction to it, I'm really loving how intensely focused I feel when I'm reading on this, which is not something I expected to say. And the last thing I'm loving about the device is the fact that it doesn't require a lot of light in order for me to see it. So especially with the Kobo Clara color, I was hearing a lot of people complain that they needed to have the lighting at even up to 80% when they were using it in order to see the screen. Personally, I have not read at anything higher than 5% light. So at night, I use 1% using the dark mode feature, and then during the day, depending on the lighting, I will go up to 5% brightness. Anything brighter than that is nice and would probably be great if I was looking at something with color imagery, because it would make those colors a little bit more vivid. But in terms of just reading black and white text, that is all I've needed so far. I've read outside, I've read inside in multiple different lighting situations, and that's been really pleasant, especially someone like me who, again, reads on their phone, but I found that even on the lowest setting of my phone, it still was brighter than I realized. And reading on this in comparison, especially at night, a lot of people told me how good it was to read at night on this. And I will say that dark mode on the lowest setting of my phone is still brighter than dark mode on the lowest setting of this. And that is really nice. I've definitely noticed some real ease of falling asleep. I don't feel, again, like I'm just going down rabbit holes before bed. It really is a great way to unwind. And again, something that you all told me was a thing, but I kind of had to experience it for myself. Now, I do want to give a fair balance to this video, especially because, again, this is not sponsored, but just my own initial thoughts. And my biggest downside I'm seeing so far is the lack of compatibility when it comes to certain file types. The biggest hurdle I've run into is the fact that Netgalley, which if you aren't familiar, is a major publishing outlet that allows readers and reviewers to receive ARC or advanced reader copies of various books. And until just a few months ago, you could download any of those titles in an EPUB format, which could be side-loaded onto a device like a Kobo. However, that has changed. They've changed the file type. And as of recording this, my understanding from all the reading I've done online is that you no longer can connect this with a Kobo device. You can't read on there. I can put this on a Kindle, which I do not have. I could also go and read via the Netgalley app, but of course that has to be done on an Android or Apple device. So again, I'm once again forced to read on my phone. Quite frankly, this is just making me want to use Netgalley less. I'm really not a fan of that. And I mostly will just probably use it for audiobooks and rely more on physical ARCs from publishers. If they want me to read their book and they don't want me to be able to do that on my Kobo, then send me a physical copy is kind of how I'm feeling about that. A little bit salty, because since I thought I'd be able to use my e-reader for that purpose there. The other thing I have noticed is that there are certain books available through my Libby library system that I have not been able to sync to my Kobo. And the reason for that, as I understand, is that those certain books do not exist within the Kobo library system. And so they need to have the same book in the store available for purchase. And so there are certain books I have already run into where I could not sync them. And I checked the store and sure enough, that book did not exist in the Kobo store. And so I, again, would be forced to read it on my phone. I've only seen that once so far, but arguably I've probably only tried to sync about 10 books. So I am expecting to run into that over and over again. I think it will come up more often than I would like, and hopefully less in the future as the Kobo library continues to expand. Otherwise, that is the main hurdle I'm seeing with the device so far, is just the fact that now that I have that, I would love to do all of my digital reading on this device, and I'm still finding myself being forced to use LCD screens and my phone in certain situations. I'm looking to limit that, and I'm being a lot more aggressive about putting some ebooks on hold through my Libby library so that I again can utilize it more in the coming months and weeks, and again report back as I've read more on this device. So to summarize, I'm really happy with the device so far. I'm still very much getting to know it, and I will come back with a longer review. Again, let me know if you'd find it helpful for me to have some close-up shots and really get to have some B-roll pulled in there so you can see what it looks like up close. Again, there's lots of good videos that do that and probably do a better job than I will, but I'm happy to do that if there's interest there. But so far so good. The fact is that my major con or negative about this device is the fact that certain things I can't read on there. Just goes to show how much I'm enjoying the experience of reading on this e-ink, and that it just annoys me that I can't do everything on this e-ink, which I knew and I'm accepting. And definitely I plan to keep this device. I don't plan on returning it, but I enjoy it so far. Loving, again, the lighting, the e-ink, all of that. Really great. And again, it's just great to see me off my phone a little bit more. It's something I don't always like to admit, but I do spend way too much time on my phone. And while I tell myself that I'm always reading on there, and if I'm draining my battery, it's because I'm reading, I know that's not always the case. I know I end up on other things, and while I'm still very much capable of picking up my phone while I'm on my e-reader, right now I'm finding it's giving me that extra barrier. It's feeling a lot more intentional as I pick up the e-reader, and because of that, I feel like I'm less drawn to my phone so far. But like I said, that could change, and that's why I want to report back. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know it's just a little bit of an overview, a little bit more low key. And again, I would love to report back once I've read a lot more on here, but I'm really enjoying it so far. Did I need this device? No, and that's, to be clear, something I do want to say is that I am always wanting to be someone who's not pushing overconsumption with booktube. If you don't have an e-reader, if you can't afford one, you don't need one in order to be a reader. You don't need one in order to read digital books, and quite frankly, there is a great use case or reason to stick with the physical books if it's working for you. I wanted to try this out, and it's something I'm enjoying, but I also don't want to push or influence anyone to get a device that they don't want or don't need or can't afford, because it very much is a luxury to have the money to set aside to pick up one of these. It's not something I needed, it's something I wanted, and I'm totally honest with that I could have continued to read the way I was and it would have been fine. But honestly, I wanted to try this out and I had a good excuse to do so, and so I did it. So anyway, I will report back once I have read further on my Kobo Clara color. So that's it for this video. Watch for my updated review when I talk more about the Kobo once I've had more time to spend with it and can give you more of an in-depth recommendation and review of the device. Of course, I would love to hear from all of you. If you have an e-reader, which one do you have? And if you haven't yet, I'd love to know if this is swaying you one way or the other. Again, I really don't want to push anyone to buy a device that they don't need or want or can't afford, but I'd also love to hear from you down below, because I know a lot of you were also on the fence and we're kind of looking to see if I would pull the trigger, make the plunge, and of course how it would all work out. So I'll keep you posted as this journey goes on. All right, thanks for watching. Okay, bye-bye.